Hey there, it's Silver. This is Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. Yeah, finally it's here, the spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio and of course Jet Set Radio Future. Were very well-loved games that also haven't gotten a whole lot of love in terms of from Sega, like releases and stuff. And so of course, as tends to happen in the indie scene, when a game like that is so beloved and influenced so many people growing up, well, they decide to make their own version. And that's exactly what we have here. But one of the big questions for me whenever I'm looking at a game like this that's very heavily inspired by an old classic is, does it actually maintain its own identity, right? Because you don't want a game to constantly remind you of something better. You want a game to be able to stand up on its own. And I do feel, personally, that this game actually does manage to do that. It does, of course, remind you of JSR quite a bit. It's hard to miss the inspiration, even in the art style, but it is still very much its own game. So what exactly is it? Well, this is a game that's all about exploring a city through its various boroughs and taking out the various street crews along the way to make yourself more popular. It's all about gaining rep, spraying graffiti tags, and avoiding militarized police, and, well, movement. The movement is, of course, extremely important in a game like this. If you never played Jet Set Radio or anything quite like it, it's all about combos, setting up long lines of uninterrupted combos throughout large portions of the city. It's related to things like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. You can think of it kind of in that genre, although it of course very much does its own thing. And the structure of the game is pretty simple. You'll start out going to one of the boroughs in the city. There are 5 different ones to choose from, and once you're in one, you'll see that it's usually composed of a couple of different areas, split between loading screens, and the areas are usually quite large, and have a whole lot of graffiti tags sprayed around and a lot of stuff to skate along and things. And you've got to gain rep, and you gain rep by finding all these graffiti tags and spraying over them with your own graffiti. The tagging system is actually pretty cool because the way it works is when you go up to a wall and press the tagging button, you'll see these dots pop up, and you can use the left stick to sort of draw a shape in between the dots. And what exact shape you draw determines the type of graffiti that you actually put down. And different sized murals and stuff give you more or less dots depending on the size of what you're actually spraying. So you can collect all sorts of graffiti throughout the game, and each one has its own pattern that you draw in order to spray it. So there's a lot of variety, and you're never just spraying the same tags over and over, which is pretty cool. And also the resolution, the texture resolution on the graffiti tags is really high, so they all look really sharp and colorful and nice. It's a lot of detail in them. Some of the tagging spots will be street level and really easy to reach, others will be a little bit higher up and require some clever maneuvering to reach, and some of them can be really well hidden and way out of the way, involving like a long series of combos to actually be able to reach where they are. But eventually, once you gain enough rep by spraying over all these, some members of the crew you're going to face down will actually just plop themselves around various parts of the city, and you got to go and talk to them, and they'll each give you a challenge. There are all sorts of challenges they can give you that you got to pass. It could be to combo a certain number of points in a small period of time, or go through a really long line without dropping your combo, all sorts of different things. And then once you're able to do it, then they'll run away, and you can move on to the next person. And then, once you've managed to beat all these challenges, you'll have one more much higher rep threshold to meet. So it'll open up an extra area of the borough, so there's a bunch more graffiti for you to find. And then once you meet that much higher threshold, you can take on the crew itself in a big crew battle, where you have free reign of the entire area, the whole borough, and you have 2 minutes, and you're fighting them directly. They're actually there in real time. And in these 2 minutes, you both got to combo as much as you can, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. If you're able to do that, then you'll gain control of the borough and you can move on, although there's also some story beats that are going to happen in between, and one of these really surreal dream sequences. These happen after every major victory. They're really cool because they're good tests of your platforming skills, being able to go across these really abstract, strange landscapes, but they also have some story important aspects to them as well, which I'm obviously not going to be showing in the background. I will show you some of one of those dream sequences, but not like the cutscenes that lead into them or anything. And also, sometimes there are boss battles. There are actually boss battles in this game. There's combat. The combat is simple. You just do tricks. You have 3 different trick buttons, and whenever you do a trick towards a cop, you just sort of smack them. And if you're able to smack them enough times, then they'll run away. You can also hit them up into the air, like Devil May Cry style, and once they're in the air, you can tag them in midair with some graffiti, and it will instantly defeat them and cause them to run, no matter how much health they had left. The boss fights in this game are unexpectedly good, I gotta say. I didn't really expect, once I learned that they were in there, I didn't expect them to be all that great because, you know, this game is not a combat game. That's not what it's about. It's there, but it's a very minor feature. But actually, because of the way they've structured the boss fights, they're pretty fun, in my opinion. They're not really about pure combat, is why they manage to be pretty enjoyable. Oftentimes, it'll be, if it's like a humanoid boss, it'll be something that is difficult to get to, so you have to use a lot of platforming and skating around and stuff to actually reach them. So the challenge of the boss fight isn't in pure combat, it's about using the area properly to reach them without getting hit, which is actually fun. And if it's one of the more large boss battles, like for instance a mech, which is sent after you at one point, this one is more about dodging attacks and then grinding up the sides of the mech to take it apart piece by piece and then tagging its head in order to defeat it, which is pretty fun. So yeah, the boss fights are unexpectedly quite good. And yeah, since I did mention the police, you do have to worry about them. So as you're going through a burrow and tagging more and more areas, you'll get a wanted level. And this heat appears in the top left of your screen and shows you how much the cops hate you. And at 1 star of heat, they'll start appearing from these boxes in the ground. They sort of come up and teleport some cops in. And there are a lot of them. They will follow you in large groups, and they can beat you up pretty quick. You have a small amount of health. It's not displayed unless you get hit, and it does recharge over time. So it's not too difficult to just leave them, you know, get out of the way and have it recharge, but you do have to be careful about not getting mobbed by a large group of them. However, that's only at the 1st star of heat, because if you continue to tag lots of graffiti and things around the place, you'll start to generate more and more. And of course, if you start to combat them and actually knock them out, that will also increase your heat. At 2 stars, these turrets will pop up, and these are actually kind of cool. They don't shoot you, they fire out these big long chains with like handcuffs on the end that slow you down and prevent you from moving very far away from the turret. And the more of them they're able to attach to you, the more they can drag you in. So you have to either do some tricks to break out of them or use your boost to break all the chains or something like that. And if they manage to draw you all the way in, they'll sort of hold you in place, and this will allow all the surrounding cops to beat you up. But one thing you can do is smack the turrets and cause them to sort of rise up in the air and expose this sensor thing on the top of them, and you can tag over that sensor and it will disable the turret completely. As you continue ascending in heat, you'll eventually get some big burly dudes with riot shields. These guys are a big problem because they can interrupt you while you're trying to grind past them or something. They are much more formidable and you want to avoid them if you can. And if you go higher than that, you can eventually get some more advanced stuff, including the normal cops starting to use guns against you, which is very unpleasant, and these do kill you real fast, so you can only take a couple of hits from these guys. You want to move very fast away from them. But, of course, the star of the game is its movement. You have 3 different movement styles, as well as just walking. You can run around and wall run and jump off of stuff and things like that, but you also just press R1 and you will use a movement style of some kind. You've got a skateboard, rollerblades, and a BMX bike, and you can switch between them, as well as switch between different characters that all have their own styles, as well as unlocking more characters joining your crew as you go along. So there's quite a bit of like visual variety in terms of the characters you can play, which is pretty cool, and although each one has their own style that they're sort of familiar with, you can still switch out for any of the 3 that you want whenever you want back at your base area. And the movement is really good. It feels super smooth. You can grind on just about everything. You can grind on all the rails and tops of billboards, and your grinds do not have to obey gravity, by the way. In fact, it's encouraged that they don't, so you can grind straight uphill, you can grind upside down, you can grind alongside a wall. You're encouraged to find all sorts of complex lines of rails and stuff that you can grind along in order to actually traverse the areas quickly. If you jump towards a billboard or like a similar flat surface, you can actually wall run it or wall ride it, depending on what you're using. And this is cool because you can do this for like as long as you want, for as long as the billboard or whatever it is you're riding lasts, so you can do it for like an absurdly long time, and then hop off and continue your combo. Otherwise, you can also do like manuals and wheelies and stuff, depending on the traversal method you're using, and these are useful for giving you a little bit of a speed boost when you land, as well as continuing your combo, because if you land at all, your combo is immediately ended. So if you do have a stretch of ground where you can't grind or wall run or anything, you need to use a manual to extend your combo until you can find a new rail to actually start again, but you can't do it for too long. The part I really like is you have basically a jetpack on you at all times. It doesn't push you up into the air, but rather forward. So you don't have a double jump exactly, but instead if you press the jump button again in midair, you burst forward quite a ways. And this allows you to cross wide gaps or wall run something farther away and things like that. It's really useful for extending over large gaps and keeping a line going, but it doesn't boost you high in the air. And then if you pull the left trigger, you also have a boost. This will jet you forward really fast. You do still fall while you're using it, but much slower than normal, so you can cross really wide gaps with it you couldn't otherwise cross, and maybe connect multiple rail systems that you otherwise wouldn't be able to just simply jump between. You can also use it while you're grinding to speed yourself up, and if you press it at the same time as doing a trick, you do a boost trick, which consumes some of the meter, like a big chunk of it, but also is like a special fancy trick, kind of like a special from Tony Hawk's, and these are worth a lot of points, and they also can like reset your manual gauge and stuff, so they're worth doing when you can, especially in the big crew battles, to get a huge boost in points if you're doing a lot of grinding and stuff. On the topic of points, you do have a point multiplier that's really important, because you can't really beat any of the crew battles without getting used to it. If you just do a bunch of tricks in a row, you're not going to actually have enough points to win. When you're on a rail, you can lean in a direction, and if you lean in the direction that the rail turns, you'll get a boost. And whenever this happens, it also ups your point multiplier. This also happens every time you wall run against a new wall for the first time. That combo, you'll continue to increase your multiplier by doing these things, and this allows you to rack up huge numbers of points if you keep doing it. So you don't just want to trick constantly, you want to stop tricking long enough to do these other maneuvers that will increase your combo, and then start tricking again once it's been increased. Occasionally mixing in some boosts to allow yourself to get along large gaps, or some boost tricks to drastically increase your points and stuff like that, and that's how you're actually going to win these big battles and get the big impressive numbers. My personal record is about 1,000,000 points in one combo, which I'm aware someone that's actually really good at this game could put that to shame immediately, but for me, I am pretty proud of that. It's not bad. The city is pretty expansive, and the boroughs are all very different from each other. I really like the mall area because it's really wide open and has a ton of space, but it's also got a lot of different rails and stuff going around it, and a lot of places for you to wall run and things. So there's a lot of like trick variety that you can do in the mall. It's such a big, complex area with so much stuff to find and do. It's really cool. But all of the areas are like that to some extent, right? They all have all sorts of different things for you to find. There are also these little floating pickups you can find for things like getting new music, learning new graffiti tags, and there will also be these adorable little big-headed robot things that are chilling somewhere, and they have a big like foam hand that you can high-five if you grind past them. They're useful for increasing your points, but also these will be part of a line of all one combo, and if you're able to high-five all of them without dropping your combo in a row, then it will unlock these little package areas, these like shipping container things that'll be full of some stuff for you to find, like oftentimes new graffiti tags or some new music and stuff like that. On that topic, the world is actually pretty full of secrets. You'll find a lot of hard-to-reach ledges will have stuff on them. I feel like every time I've worked really hard to get up somewhere and see if I could actually do it, not only can you do it, but there's actually something up there waiting for you, because the devs actually thought of that. So the game definitely revels in its movement system and allows you to get just about anywhere if you're good enough, and pretty much everywhere will have a reason for you to get up there in the first place. There are all kinds of hidden things to collect, hidden tagging areas to max out your rep in certain boroughs and all that stuff. There's a lot to find. And also the music is definitely something to mention. The music is really good in this game, which, I mean, it's a Jet Set Radio sort of revival, so it has to be. It's kind of necessary for it to be good. That's part of the DNA that it's going for, right? And yeah, this isn't the kind of music that I would personally normally listen to like in my own time, but I don't care about that. That's not what I look for in a good video game soundtrack. I don't care what the genre is. I care whether or not it seems to really belong with the game and really enhance the experience. Like either it helps to create a better atmosphere, or it just puts you really in the mood to play it, or it goes along with the action really well, something like that. And in that case, yeah, the soundtrack is perfect for this game. They've done a really good job of making some fantastic music that goes along perfectly with the areas you're in, and I like the fact that you can unlock more music by exploring and finding these discs everywhere, which means the soundtrack will only get more interesting and more varied as you continue to explore, which is a really cool thing to do. So yeah, my view on Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is it's really fantastic. It's a really good revival of an old classic, and it manages to simultaneously do its own thing while still being that revival that people were looking for. And just looking at the art style, you can see exactly what I mean, right? It's got that classic, very cel-shaded, super colorful look, but everything has like a much higher texture quality and looks very crisp and clean. It's just a really nice art style all around that's like mega colorful and matches the game perfectly. So yeah, if you're at all a fan of the Jet Set Radio games, or if you were just a fan of like similar stuff like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and you want something like that, this is a really good example. The movement and tricks and everything are all very fun to pull off, and it makes it feel like a very rewarding experience given how much stuff there is to find in hard to reach areas and how enjoyable it actually is to learn how to reach them. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I will put the link in the description below this video to the Steam store page so that you can go and check it out yourselves. and I'll see you next time.